Morning, everyone. So how many people were good little biohackers and in bed by 9 p.m.? How many were on the craps table till 2 a.m.? Got one hand. Well, thank you. I'm going to present on tracking longevity outcomes, which means how can we actually measure that what we're doing with our health is moving the needle? So as I mentioned in the intro, before I started working with health data, I was studying computer systems. And my job was to go and collect billions and billions of data points from computer systems and analyze that data. And I could go into a large corporation and show them all the problems they had in their computer systems. And it was oftentimes right in front of the people who were supposed to be finding those problems. But these people did not have the right data, and they didn't have the right tools to analyze the data. And when I started working on my own health, I realized that I could take what I was doing on computer systems and start applying that to biological systems, which is what we're all trying to figure out here today. The problem was that none of those tools existed to really study biological systems. They existed for computer systems. So that's what I've been working on for the last 10 years, is basically intelligent software that can help us understand the performance of our own biological system. So what I want to present today is, first of all, just a look at what's happened in the last 10 years with respect to understanding our own health. And then I'm going to give you a framework for looking at your own health data. I only have 20 minutes here, so I can't get into details on this specific health metric or that health metric. But instead, what I'm going to give you is a framework that you can use to start understanding your own health data. So when I got into this picture on the left here, is there a pointer? Right here. This was 10 years ago. Okay, all of our medical records were on pieces of paper in a closet in the doctor's office. How many remember seeing medical records that look like this? And guess what? You did not, in many states in the US, you did not even have the legal right to request that information 10 years ago. You could go to the doctor and ask for the records, and they did not have to give them to you. That's where our health data was 10 years ago. So what's changed? First was the HITECH Act. This was from the federal government. They basically incentivized doctors to move all of our health data from here to online patient portals. How many people have logged into their doctor's portal before? Great. Okay, so it's at least on the internet now, and we can get access to it. That was actually a massive undertaking to get how many billions of people's data from here to here. So that happened. Then we have this technological explosion in the last 10 years. We have sensors now that didn't exist 10 years ago that can measure everything about our body. So you have this massive explosion in data. That's the second big change. And now we have artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence can analyze billions of data points, cross-reference them with all of the medical literature and scientific papers we have a name for, and give you a recommendation in 3 milliseconds. This is 10 years. This is what we now have access to understand our own health and our own longevity. This is the most exciting time ever to be in this space. So when you think about measuring your longevity, ask yourself these questions. Are you doing things correctly? A lot of the times we may have the right tools, but we don't know how to use them. Take a weight loss peptide, for example. There's lots of right ways to do it, and there's lots of wrong ways to do it. The data can help you. Is my health actually improving or not? How can we objectively answer that question? We need some data. And then are the interventions working? Okay, I'm going to go do 100 hyperbaric oxygen sessions, or I'm going to engage in a novel supplement. How can I measure that it actually worked? We're spending money, time, and energy. How do we know? So the framework I'll give you to think about your health data, this is what I came up with. This is lifestyle outcomes. These are the things we can measure and change every single day. Think about yourself as a self-learning machine that just gets data every single day and makes small improvements every single day. If you do these things correctly, when you go to the doctor and get your blood work, this data gets better. And if this data is getting better, then when you go to run the new emerging diagnostics that are starting to quantify our biological age, we start to see these numbers improve. And if these numbers aren't good, chances are something is not good here. So we can start to look at these together, and they're actually all one big feedback loop. So the clinics that we work with, when they see numbers out of range here, they're going to look at what's wrong here. And when they see numbers out of range here, they're going to start looking here and here to figure out where you're doing things incorrectly. So let's look at lifestyle outcomes. This is where I'll spend most of the time because this is where you have to do the work. And it happens every single day. So the first thing we want to look at, blood sugar. Now this is still the biggest lever we have. Dysregulated blood sugar affects everything from sleep to hormones, to how much fat we store on our body, to all of the metabolic systems we have a name for. This paper just came out in March of 2025. The brain damage associated with Alzheimer's disease starts in our 40s. It starts with insulin resistance. There's a window of opportunity around age 44. If we don't have insulin resistance in check by age 44, we're setting ourselves up for vascular damage and neurocognitive disorders in our 60s. You have to figure this shit out now. And you have to figure out how to optimize this stuff now. The good news is this is relatively easy to optimize. These sensors on my arm, just within the last year, they became available without a prescription. And every time my blood sugar goes too high, I get a ping on my phone. And I'm like, okay, what did I eat? This is my dad's data right here. Every night he was hitting 210 right before bed. I put a CGM on. He was eating fruit before bed, and he was insulin resistant. He didn't know the fruit was doing this. But this is a small micro injury on the body. So just by finding this and making that one correction, that starts to compound over decades. And it starts to prevent those things I just showed on the previous slide. So blood sugar is number one. Stress is number two. Stress is actually something we can easily measure every single day. It's measured in the form of heart rate variability. So what is heart rate variability? It's basically a measurement of the balance in our central nervous system. And this is a night where I had very poor heart rate variability. This is my data. I probably had a late meal. I had some alcohol before bed, whatever. This data is terrible. This night, I went to bed early. I did some meditation before bed. I wound down. I did some relaxation, and this number goes up. So optimizing stress, we can learn every day. Find the things that make the numbers go up and do more of those. And find the things that make the number go down and do less of those. And it's just a self-calibration exercise. You get instant feedback every single day, and you just continue to self-optimize. This is some data from Aura. They've got 5 million plus users now. It just shows you, based on your age, what should your HRV be? So again, I can look at where I should be for my age, and if I'm out of range low, I've got some work to do. And if I'm in line for my age, I want to try to get to the HRV of somebody 20 years younger than me. So we can start to use this information to set goals. This is another experiment with my dad's data. I put him in 100 hyperbaric oxygen sessions. We measured every single session he did. And I improved his heart rate variability by 28.2%. If any of you have ever tried to improve HRV, it's not an easy number to move the needle on. This is quantifying an experiment. This was $5,000 worth of HBOT. I want to know that it worked. So this is where the data comes in to show us that it works. And then sleep is also one of the biggest levers we have. There's more to sleep than just going to bed early and getting up on time. Sleep actually is a skill that we can learn to master. And we can get very precise data on sleep. What was my lowest resting heart rate? How many times per minute was I breathing? We can't measure this, we're out. The sensors can measure this. Turns out there's a lot of things we can do to optimize our sleep, and we can measure if it works. We can optimize our bedroom, the temperature of the air, the quality of our sheets, the air quality. We can optimize our mindset. We can do relaxation before bed. And you'll see immediately the next day the data get better. There's supplements we can take. There's one guy on my team, he put one of these cooling pads on his mattress. He sleeps with his wife. His wife sleeps hot. She needs it warm. He sleeps cold. He lost that battle, so the room was hot every single night. So I got him one of these cooling mats for the bed, and you can set the temperature separately on each side of the bed. And we measured his deep sleep on the Oura Ring, and it increased 20% just by changing the temperature in the bed. That's an outcome. That's an outcome we can optimize on a regular basis. And then last but not least is fitness. Exercise is the biggest lever we have. And the way you can measure that is through VO2 max. There's a treadmill test. This is really an uncomfortable experience. You're just getting pounded on a treadmill with this Darth Vader mask on. But you can also measure it just on a watch and get an estimated VO2 max. And you can get an estimated VO2 max based on your age. So find your VO2 max for your age. Okay, I'm here. And then optimize your fitness to get to someone 20 years younger than you. That way, when you're 80, you have the fitness of a 60-year-old. And when you're 100, you have the fitness of an 80-year-old. So that's where cardio fitness comes in. This is the data on VO2 max. They followed 122,000 people for 10 years, and they measured their VO2 max. Just by getting from low to below average for your range was a 50% reduction in all-cause mortality. Just that one change. Getting from low to above average was a 60 to 70% reduction. And if you were in the elite level for your age, you had a 5 times lower all-cause mortality. That's the power of cardiovascular fitness and VO2 max. And be able to look back historically. I can look at my VO2 max for the last 10 years. And with every year I get biologically older, I want my VO2 max to be the same or better. And this is how we continue to stay optimal. So the key points about the lifestyle outcomes. One is this is where you put the work in for longevity. There's no magic bullet. It's blood sugar, it's sleep, it's exercise, it's stress. Do the micro experiments and use the data to figure out if the micro experiments work. These sensors and wearables are like being lost in the forest and having a compass. That's what this data is to you. It's guiding you. It's guiding you to make the correct changes in your life. And then have a healthy relationship with data. Some people get a little too wrapped around the axle on it every single day. You have to have a healthy relationship with it. I like to look at doing this stuff like a video game. I wake up in the morning, I play the video game, I look at the data, it's my score. So just gamify it and try not to take it too seriously. So if we're doing everything right and we're optimizing our day-to-day choices, then when we go to the doctor and we run our blood work, we want to see these numbers get better. We're only running blood work once or twice a year. And these are things like traditional labs, cholesterol levels, hemoglobin A1C. It's diagnostics that do more advanced things like body composition, but we're not measuring these every day. We're measuring these once or twice a year. The good news with getting blood tests done is these are coming down in price and accessibility. You can go to Function Health or LabCorp. They're going to run 1,000 blood tests for you for a few $100s. So you really have no reason not to do this at least annually. When I got into this game, these companies didn't exist. You really needed an act of God to get your doctor to run a few extra blood tests. I'd have to lobby them just to do my hemoglobin A1C because there was no diagnostic code. It's like now you just go on the internet, you go to Quest, you get it done. And so this data is incredibly easy to get now. It's coming down in price and it's becoming easily accessible. Second, when it comes to labs, this is a point-in-time measurement. So I just got my ApoB tested. It was 105. That's actually out of range high. So do I need to treat that or not? Actually, what you need is to look back at your ApoB over the last 10 years. And it turns out some days I'm higher and some days I'm lower. So this helps me understand historically how aggressively do I need to treat that number. Turns out I've been higher and I've been lower. Guess what? You go to the lab and they check your blood and then they compare it to where you were a year ago. Well, a year ago you may have been in a stressful situation. You may have been in a different time and place in life. So it's not always directly comparable to the most recent result. So you need to look at this information in context. And that's why I would encourage you to get as far back into your medical results. I call all my old doctors, I get all my old blood work, and I put it all in one system because I want to see the entire context. That means that I may not freak out if I have one bad reading because actually it's within a normal standard deviation. And even if you go to the same lab, I went to the clinic a few weeks ago and we did an experiment. They put one needle in my arm and we took vials of blood and sent them to 2 different labs. One said my vitamin D was 31, and one said my vitamin D was 50. So am I low or not? So that's why it's important to just make sure you got more than one data point when it comes to blood work. So take-home points with labs. 1 is this is cheap and easy to get. Everybody should do it once a year. 2, there's standard deviations in the data, just like there's standard deviations on glucose monitors and rings. And 3, look back as far as possible in your blood work when you're optimizing. Okay, great. So we're learning how to self-calibrate day to day. We're learning how to self-calibrate our blood sugar, our sleep, our stress, our exercise. We're getting our labs done. Our labs are starting to get better. They're all starting to come in range. Now there's these new emerging diagnostics that are actually helping us measure our entire lifespan, our rate of aging, and they're measuring our biological age. These are new diagnostics. And there's different companies that are measuring this in different ways. Now, GlycanAge is looking at biological age as a byproduct of inflammation and immunosenescence. So they're looking at your biological age by looking at markers of inflammation in your body. True Diagnostic is using DNA methylation and other aging clocks, a completely different way of measuring this biological age number. There are other companies that are doing it through telomere testing. There are other companies that have created algorithms just on regular blood work. So there's different ways to measure this, and they're all looking at your biological age through a different vector. Regardless of what you think about Rejuvenation Olympics, like, it's not meant to be a competition for me. It's like, how low can we get these scores, and what are they doing? Can we share the protocols that are actually working? These people have lowered the aging clocks now to less than half a year. So assuming these clocks are accurate for every calendar year, they're actually aging less than half a year. So has this person effectively doubled the remaining lifespan or not? We don't know yet. We're the first people to ever measure this stuff, but it's interesting. So the key take-home points with the longevity outcomes are approach these tests with curiosity. I would encourage you to run a few different versions of these. Run one that looks at biological age through inflammation. Run one that looks at it through DNA methylation. Run one that does it through traditional blood work. You may actually score very well on some tests. Like when I did the inflammation-based one, my numbers were incredible. When I did the True Diagnostic one, it didn't come back incredible. So with these tests, it's not just that vanity number. It's not just that biological age. When you read the reports, you need to see what is actually in the algorithm that's calculating the biological age. Just like when you look at your aura data, they'll show you the factors that contributed to that sleep. You need to see the factors on the test that compute the score. That's what really shows you where you need to focus. And guess what? If the numbers on those biological age reports are not what you want to see, you want to go back to your lab work, and you want to go back to your lifestyle data, and you want to start to figure out the areas you need to focus on. Could be dysregulated blood sugar. I was talking to one of my clinician friends who works at Fountain Life, and she's got a very high net worth client whose biological age is just not improving, and they're doing everything right. And so she had to go back and start looking at other factors, and it turns out that this individual's stress levels were way, way out of range, and that was showing up in the heart rate variability data. So this data was out of range, and we need to go back and work on the stress levels of this individual. So that's why you have to look at all of this data as one picture. It's not just this vanity biological age number. It's really everything. And that's the feedback loop. We do our work here. We self-calibrate and self-optimize here. And then we look at these diagnostic labs, and then we can look at these emerging diagnostics. The other thing I'll say about the emerging diagnostics, if I can just go back, is these tests are still relatively new. There's some of them on their first generation and second generation of testing. So like any new technology, these tests are going to get better and more accurate, especially with the amount of investment capital coming into longevity. So these data sets are also getting bigger. And the more data you can feed to train the AI models, the better these tests get. So I would encourage you to get these numbers now and get a baseline now. And then you can continue to look at these as the tests get better. the data sets get better, and the technology gets better. So that's the feedback loop that I like to use to think about life. Put your work in, run your labs, and run the biological age diagnostics. And then most importantly is you want to have a platform with all your data in one place. We make one. You can come check it out. I'll show you how it works with our system. There's lots of other systems on the market, but you want to have all your numbers in one place so you can start to actually look at which variables are out of range. And I would be remiss if I did any talk on longevity without talking about the things we cannot measure. And actually, these are probably the biggest levers we have in terms of longevity. And these relate to the fine art of relaxation. How many people really can say that they know how to deeply relax on a regular basis and put their body into a really good parasympathetic state? Like, do you have the tools to do that regularly? I see a few hands. That's a skill right there. Do you have friends and family and community around you who love you and you love them? Have you done your trauma work? That's a hard one. You know, that's going deep into yourself. Guess what? Trauma work shows up in the heart rate variability data. Even trauma that happened to you in your formative years before 6, it shows up in the data. This is where plant medicine can be very helpful. Do you have healthy relationships, healthy career, and are you able to give and receive love? The areas of the world with the highest longevity are not self-quantifying the shit out of themselves like we are, but they have this dialed in. I want to live in a world where I have both. I have this and I have the data. But this is the stuff that I think is actually the highest lever, and that's what I'd like to leave you with today. So I've got time for questions if there's any. Yeah, Ina? There's several of them out there. They're generally subscription-based, $6 to $10 a month for an individual. Yeah, and they'll connect to all your doctor's offices. They'll pull all the data out of your historical providers. They'll connect to the sensors. They'll let you upload PDF reports. They'll pull all the data out of the PDF reports. They'll organize it for you. They'll really give you an incredibly simple and powerful tool for managing the information. They're going to make some very general recommendations because they have to build recommendations that apply to all people. But that's where you'll have to look at your individual situation. That's where you may want to have a practitioner help you. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Following up on her question, which companies are doing that for $10 a month?
We're doing it at Heads Up. There's another company called Guava that does a really good job with their app. Just look up personal health records. And they're very sophisticated now. You know, the national healthcare system now has these electronic exchanges. So before you'd have to call every doctor independently. Literally, you'd get a piece of stack of papers in the mail. Not super helpful. Then you got to scan them in and get the data into an actual database where you can do something with it. You know, now we're able to start tapping into the national health exchanges. A lot of that data is just populated electronically. And then the sensors, you can connect the sensors as well and start making the small changes day to day. Yes, sir? I still like to use a traditional glucometer. I'm old school. I also like to use the glucometer because it can also measure ketones, because I do a lot of intermittent fasting. But I use the Keto Mojo blood sugar meter. And then for the continuous glucose monitor, there's 2 companies that make them. They're both over the counter. One's called Dexcom, and one is called, well, the company that makes it is Abbott, and their over-the-counter product is called Duolingo. But if you just look up continuous glucose monitor, like I said, up until about 6 months ago, you had to go to the doctor and get a prescription to get this, which kind of sucks. Actually, the US was the only country that required a prescription. Now you can get them over the counter. They're cheaper, they're better, and they're designed for individuals to use, so it's actually relatively easy to start understanding the data. Any other questions? All right, thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of the show.